Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your host, Alex Greenwood, bringing you your weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips that will help you and your business. For communications professionals, finding ways to stay sharp and create a culture of professional growth can be challenging, but there's ways to do it. Today we're going to talk to Kelli Kelley. She is the founder and CEO of brndMethod Media Group out of Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to find out what she does to create that great culture for her organization, as well as stay sharp and continue to grow as a professional. Be right back after these messages with Kelli Kelley. Hello listeners, it's me, Alex from PR After Hours. I hope you're enjoying the show so far, and I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the way I get this show right into your earbuds every week. It's because I use Anchor FM. Now, I've told you previously that I've been podcasting since 2006, back when we used stone knives and bear skins and a couple of Dixie cups and string. Anchor FM has really streamlined this and made it simpler for people who don't know the first thing about setting up a podcast or don't have, time to learn all the pro tools and stuff, because it's all right here. First thing it's important to know is it's free. There are certain tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. That's huge. Distribution is a big pain in the butt, to be honest with you, so it's really great Anchor FM can do that for you, and you're not paying hosting fees. That adds up every month. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, so download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started, and be sure to join me in the virtual cocktail lounge on PR After Hours. It's really nice to talk to other people in our line of work, particularly listeners if you're a public relations or marketing or kind of a hybrid type professional that does all those things, social media included. It's kind of great to talk to somebody who's a peer, somebody who can talk about their journey, talk a little bit about the things they do to stay sharp. And that's why we're really excited today on the show to have Kelli Kelley. She is the founder and CEO of brndMethod Media Group. It's a digital marketing agency in Duluth, Georgia. And I want to welcome Kelli to PR After Hours.
Thanks so much for having me, Alex.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Hey, so what about your journey real quick? What got you to where you are today leading your own digital agency?
So I started in communications as a traditional publicist back in 2003, freshly out of undergrad. So this is all pre-social media, really reality TV that kind of highlighted these type of positions. So I did not know publicist was a job. I didn't go to school for that. I fell into it. I was in Manhattan working for the Walmart brand Faded Glory. I was a receptionist, and they had an in-house publicist, and she would invite me to go to editors' luncheons. And I would say, yes, okay, of course. She basically taught me the ropes. She ended up leaving. I took over the position, and that's where my love of communication started. I moved from New York in 2006 back to Atlanta, Georgia, and decided to start my own business. And even in Atlanta, this was before, we had the movies and all that. So I was trying to figure it out because this was not New York. So I had to get the lay of the land. And decided to reach out to as many people as I could to start the business, figure out what the need was. And a few years after that is when Facebook and Twitter kind of came into play a little heavier. And the more that I researched social media / digital, the more that I found that I prefer that to the traditional. And I just went all in on that. I got a certification from through Coursera. And I learned really how to align a digital strategy to support a company's sales goals. And I was sold. That was it for me. So that's what kind of got me to this point. This industry you could go a lot of different ways. We stick with digital strategy, content, podcast production, and website design. But everybody in the company has a true passion for what we do, and it is needed.
I totally agree. And what I love hearing about your journey and looking at your website and what you're doing is well, I love it because it's similar to what I do, but it's not quite the same thing. But it's good to hear that you sound to me like you're an early adopter. That
Hmm.
you always had your eye on the ball. Like social came along, and I did too. I did a lot of social strategy and content and all that for a long time. I was managing communities for a long time until I realized I needed a life, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I pay other people to do that. But the podcast production, I started podcasting in 2006, back when it was stone
Wow.
knives and bear skins and a Dixie cup with string,
Yeah.
But so I'm just always thrilled though to see a fellow communications professional like yourself having a show. What is the name of your show, by the way?
Digital Dive Media. So we launched that as a sister company, and we're trying to relaunch it actually. But we launched it because we wanted to create a platform in two part for communications professionals to kind of keep them informed on how the landscape is changing. As a mentor myself, I was always coming across these new graduates or, young kids coming out of school that didn't really have the skills they needed to get the job. And I saw the gap and the need. And so we created that platform with the hope of, answering the questions. How do you get approval for social media when your C suite doesn't believe in it? How do you present ideas when everybody looks at you as the social media girl and it's kind of like an afterthought or whatever the case may be? So that was the purpose of that because this is a pretty important function of a business today. Now, I mean, now literally more than ever.
Yeah.
But when we started it, you still would come across people that would say, "Oh, we have our secretary do our
Oh,
Facebook and all this kind
I remember those days
of."
well.
And it's like, okay, well, you probably don't believe in it as a real function of your business because you don't put real resources behind it. I'm assuming your secretary doesn't really have time to pull analytics, to look at KPIs, to set goals and all that type of stuff. You have to treat it as a real function and you'll get real results.
Is there a sector that you basically go after, or are you generalist? What type of clients are we looking at here from your company?
We're kind of a general. So we've had several clients in real estate development. We work currently with a law firm, but we also have a client that's a financial software product. So we don't at the time niche down.
Hmm.
And I've seen people champion for you to do that. And then some people are like, no, we just haven't found a real compelling reason based on our skill set and our goals as a company to niche down to a specific industry.
Hmm.
Our sort of qualifications are usually based on revenue and the company's goals. We want to work with companies that want to work with us. We don't go after companies that don't believe in social media in 2020 or don't believe in digital in 2020. Like, we don't bother with that.
There's a certain amount of education you'll do for clients, but at this point, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
If they don't get it now,
no. Yeah, and we're happy to educate. We love to educate. We present quite often. We'll do webinars, we'll do presentations, we'll show you. And 9 times out of 10, if we're given that opportunity, it's like the light bulbs go off in the room and people are like, huh, really? You can learn all that through doing so. It's like, yeah, you can literally get in front of who you want to and you can track it. That's the biggest thing that I think as a personally for me, I love being able to measure it.
I love knowing professionals like you because I'm not great at the measurement, and I do my brand of PR. It's very tricky at times to prove ROI. Sometimes
Hmm.
building awareness. You know this. I'm not.
Hmm.
Most of the listeners are going, "Yeah, Alex, you say this all the time." But for the new listeners, I'll say it one more time. But because when you do certain kinds of awareness building, when you consider that, okay, what if we are helping develop your social media tone of voice and that strategy? What if we're doing that? We're coupling that with media pitches. We're coupling that and advising you on your media buys and
Hmm.
your targeted ad sales and things like that. But then you're so part of this big universe of things you're offering that it then becomes harder, at least for me, to drill down and say, see, look, I help with that. This is why
Hmm.
you pay me. But you apparently are much better at identifying and measuring what you're doing, right?
Yeah, so we definitely do that. That's part of our pitch. The first conversations we have in any sort of strategy or discovery or anything like that, we need to know your sales goals. We don't shy away from that. We do not promise that we are salespeople because we're not. But if we know your sales goals, then we can align our strategy to support that. We don't think that marketing, whether it's digital or traditional, should operate in such a silo from sales as it has traditionally for so long.
Yeah.
We're like, let's get involved in those conversations. What are the sales goals? What objections are you facing, sales team? Because then we can use that to create content. We don't need to shove down the feed, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. Answer the questions. So you have to go to the sales team and say, where are you finding pushback? Oh, well, people don't, we don't have enough brand recognition. Okay, well, that's a goal. Oh, price problem. Okay, well, let's talk about, value. That guides us in our content.
I love that, because there's always a bit of a well, not always, but I've seen this a lot with my clients and back in my corporate days before this, where sales didn't really need marketing in their business and
Hmm.
vice versa. And of course, now you also see that PR and marketing are all but merged in so many
Yes.
companies, which I have mixed feelings about that because I'm old. But I think I don't know. But hey, let me just ask you then on that call, how do you feel about the divide? Do you believe that PR and marketing should work together, but keep it separate, or should they all be blended?
I think that PR and marketing should work together. I don't think one team needs to supersede or oversee the other, but it's all communications at the end of the day. What message are we putting out? And how can we work together to help the other team? Because if we're all working on for the same company, whether we're outside agency or it's an internal team, our goal is cohesive to a certain degree. We should be working towards the same thing. So I need to know what you're dealing with, PR team, and I need to know what sales team you're dealing with so that all the messaging can be the same in support of the goal. I love a good creative. I love doing cool stuff. How does that help the goal though? Like we gotta line that up.
Yeah, I've got a guy who works on my team, and he doesn't listen to the show, so I'll say, he he's a great pitcher and he's really creative, but sometimes I'm like, he's trying so hard to get a story placed,
Mhm.
and he's of the mind that, hey, I got a story placed, that's got to be great. I'm like, yeah, but if it doesn't really help the goal, it's not wasted effort, but it's probably not the best use of the client's money. Uh,
Absolutely.
is that true, or am I off there?
No, that's absolutely true. And so, even for us, we have very candid conversations in the beginning that yes, we are in support of the sales goals, but we're not salespeople. So, there is a funnel, if you will, or a customer journey. And if we are serving up leads by creating brand awareness, top of the top of the funnel. Of
Right,
course, you,
right.
you you know you have clients that still, if they bring on a digital agency, they're like, okay, well, we're running an ad. Why aren't we getting sales? These people don't know you. This is your first ad in life. These people do not know you yet. We need to build some brand awareness and keep nurturing that and pull them through, your first post or ad. Hey, let's just give them value. And then you work them through social and to email and to nurturing. And then you do your ask. I think that's where a lot of companies get confused. They want a sale out the gate. And that's not what we do. Now, we can track how many leads have come through based on the content we've put out through the, attribution and all that. So that's where we are very clear on how are we measuring success for us? What does that look like? Let's all get on the same page of what that looks like because we are not salespeople
Right.
necessarily because we don't really work with a lot of e-commerce people. We usually do B2B, and that can be a long sales cycle.
Yeah.
So if we're starting in this 60 days in, we all need to be real clear on what it is you're expecting at the end of 60 days.
Yeah, the setting the expectations is absolutely crucial.
Mhm.
I learned the hard way. There's going to be tears before bedtime if you don't do that. And the worst thing in the world is getting called in for a review by a client sitting across from a grumpy
Mhm.
C-suite dude or dudette saying, "Wait a minute, we expected this and this." And of course, this happened to me early on years ago, and it's not a pleasant sensation to be sitting there going, crap, I really didn't give them a good
Sure.
framework for expectations. And that's absolutely, as I said earlier, to point back to my previous comment, Kelly, is especially if you're in a position like not typically, but often I am, where it's hard to measure what I'm doing. You got to
Mhm.
darn sure make sure those goals are aligned. I'd love that tip.
Absolutely.
So Kelly, just one more question about your business, and then I want to ask you just a few more about just how you keep sharp and what you do. But so are you managing a team? Is it a virtual team, or do you pull in contractors as needed, or what's your business model look like?
So both. So we're managing a virtual team and we also have contractors that we pull in per project and we have agency partners. So we don't do SEO. We don't typically do real hardcore branding projects. So we have a couple of agencies local here for the most part that we can pull in and we stay in contact and we refer each other business. We will come in as white label. Sometimes they come in as white label. It's really what the client prefers and the best way to get the job done. But yeah, we definitely believe in partnership. We believe in keeping costs low. We are not a major multi-million dollar operation. So the best move for us is to get a small team of, nurtured, consistent people, but then have your freelancers on standby and your agency partners as well.
You know, I hate to say it, but we're kind of competitors because it's exactly how I do it too. AGPR. But the good news here, this is you'll be relieved. Everybody listeners, she's really sweating. I can tell you, I'm sure. But you'll be relieved to know we don't focus on the digital marketing like you do
Mhm.
so much. We're crisis comm planning, crisis comm. I actually can't say what, of course, but I had a crisis comm situation over the weekend I had to handle with the client, and so we do that kind of work, and we do a lot more in the planning sphere because, as I said earlier, not that I'm that old, but I'm just getting to a point in my career where I don't want to always be constantly on the front lines, and I like helping brands and clients and organizations think ahead and look around corners. That's a really big important thing for me. And then I just do what you do for the other stuff. We SEO firms or graphic artists, those
Mhm.
people, pull them in because I did the thing with the Office Space, and
Oh,
boy.
good old Office
I
Space.
mean, did you do it? Did you do it?
We did. We've done that a couple times. Way back before WeWork kind of took over. We were in a Regis. I don't know if you have Regis where you are.
Is that a
Um, it's a co-working space.
Oh,
They've
okay.
been around for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
They're very, very corporate and slick. The opposite of the opposite of your WeWork and your industrious and all these like cool, fancy little
Hip places.
co-working spaces. And then we came out of there and tried a WeWork last summer.
Hmm.
And it just didn't really seem worth it based on how we could operate. And then with this going on, I mean, it was like I felt bad for anybody in a lease. I don't even know what they did when the quarantine happened. If they were let out, if like how did that work?
Kelly, one of my clients, and he's in Oklahoma City. He's been on the show actually. He is an accountant. He's a pot accountant. He's the accountant who went to pot, as I say, and it's so funny because he's the last guy you would ever think would be working with marijuana. But anyway,
I'm
that's
sure he's got a good book of business.
yeah. I can tell you stories, but he had the office, but the pandemic hit, and then it was just he realized one, most of my clientele doesn't come to the office, which is the same thing that happened to
Mhm.
me. Nobody came. I was spending, a lot of money having a rented space with plenty of room and all this stuff, and the only people who went were my interns and me and occasional members of my crew who come in. And I just thought this is stupid. And so I've done the same on the we work, but it's not the same. I just got a table there because it was a benefit of my credit card, and I would just go in there and I got to admit the environment is interesting, but I'm not sure it was necessarily for me, and I couldn't really
Mhm.
bring clients there because I just had a desk, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
so when I do need a place, though, I have a locally owned. Co-working space called iWorks, and they've also been a guest on the show, and they're fantastic. Bob Martin and his crew. So I go there, but I just like you. I think I found that particularly with the pandemic, I don't want to intermingle with people right now.
Yeah.
I don't mean that unkindly. It's just I don't want to get sick.
Sure.
I have a young child. I believe you do as well, and
Hmm.
so there's those concerns. And two, it's just nice having that money back in my pocket right now
That
because
money and that time,
oh
because
yeah,
there's no commute.
that's true. That's
So
true.
you're gaining an extra, hour in your day to do, you can work or you can relax or you can do some personal development or you can read or I mean you've gained an extra hour in the day at least. And there's value there.
There is. I block off an hour a day for not really meditation because I can't quiet my mind enough. But I work out or I just do the things I want to do for me, and that's time I used to spend going. You're right, going to the office.
Yep.
So Kelly, that leads us right into the last batch of questions I have for you,
Sure.
which are how do you keep it going? I mean, there's besides the tumult in the world today and the pandemic and all these horrible things, but just if we can try to reach back to normalcy and think about just running an agency virtually, Can I just ask, what is your biggest challenge? And then how do you, as a professional and as a leader, how do you deal with it?
I think for me, my biggest challenge is learning how to run a business. And when I say that, I mean running a business is very different than being good at whatever the business does.
Oh, true.
So, digital marketing, I've been good at that. I've been in communications a long time. Running a business is different than executing digital marketing. And I learned that from a women's entrepreneur incubator that I was a part of through 2018. And it really helped me to see you need to learn how to run a business, leadership, putting the right people in the right spaces. So then that put me on a quest for heavy education, which I've always been a fan of.
Mhm.
Anytime I've ever wanted to know more about something, I'll dive right in. Books, videos, whatever. So once I realized you need to learn how to run a bit strategic planning, finances beyond what's coming in, what's going out. How do you project cash flow? So the last 2 years have really been learning that, creating culture. I used to think that was fluff stuff. I
Hmm.
used to hear people say that, and I would think, no one has time for that. Like, we just need to get money in the door. And it's like, well, yes, but you also need to build a team. And part of building a team is to create a culture if you want an effective team. So, one of the ways that I deal with that as an obstacle is just to learn. So part of what we do for our team is everyone is required to do at least 2 hours a month of continuing education in support of their position. And if there's a cost involved, then of course we'll pay for it. But we think that 2 hours is fair enough. Part of what we talked about, keeping your skills sharp. Nothing about our industry stays the same. And you can't know everything all the time, but you can certainly keep up a little bit. And know, where you need to focus if you're committing at least 2 hours a month to, okay, if my position is, social media content creator, do I need to spend this 2 hours figuring out what this new algorithm is about? Like, where does my focus need to be? And that at least helps us to stay competitive because we've seen other agencies that don't even keep up with major updates.
Oh, yeah.
And they're huge. And, I get it. It's a lot going on, but we try to differentiate ourselves by doing that.
Do your team members really respond well to that, I assume?
They do. Part of this whole quest to be a better business owner and a leader sent me down the rabbit hole of the best ways to hire. And a vetting process and, kind of just setting that foundation so that when, you tell an employee, hey, part of this job requires 2 hours a month at least of continuing education, you've already, through your hiring process, kind of prepped for that, for them to be of the same mindset of the culture you're trying to create. So there's not a lot of pushback. We don't gloss over or skip over hiring whoever responds to the ad, or I mean, there is a process to it, and that's just something I learned in the last year, and it helps set the foundation, and then everything else from there is a lot easier than just hiring who does the interview well and not asking questions that would help you determine if they are of the same mindset in terms of culture.
That, I'm going to have to borrow that program from you. See, this is why I do this. I get this to steal good ideas from people. This is
Hmm.
so great. So yeah, you'll have to come after me when you find out I'm stealing all your management ideas. I love this, Kelly. So Kelly, I'm going to ask you a big picture question, and then there's going to be a little question, and then I'm going to send you on your way to your day. But I so appreciate you being here in the virtual lounge with me. Big question. Here's the big question. Where do you see it going? And, factor everything in that's going on in the world. But where do you see digital marketing going? Where do you see your business going, knowing what we know right now?
So I had a really great opportunity to read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. I don't know if you've read it,
I have not.
but it forces you to do a 1 year, 3 year, 10 year thing, and it's pretty in depth. And I completed this last at the end of 2019. So I can tell you long term what we see is definitely venturing into AI and VR. How? I don't know those details yet. I'm sure there'll be partnerships involved in terms of agencies, but I think that's where things are going, and we want to be a part of that. I'm not of the mindset of staying stagnant. but I also don't want to veer too far off from what I do really feel passionate about. So we definitely want to figure out how to do that more. Also, getting more into video production, creating messaging and staying in front of your target and creative content, I think is obviously it's already shown to be more important than ever. And I'm really passionate about that. So we'll definitely be expanding into those areas. Beyond that, IoT and all that. I don't know if we'll get that far, but definitely AI, VR, and video production.
It's funny, my last guest, Jerry Abiog with Standard Insights, is an AI marketing platform company. And
Oh wow.
yeah, we had a pretty long episode talking about it, last episode, so he's the last one. I'll send you a link to Jerry offline just so
Okay.
you can look at that. Fascinating guy, and the great thing I took away from that was just how AI can really practically be used by clients. He's
Yes.
talking about how restaurants can use it, for goodness sake, especially right
Hmm.
now, because they need to target the people who actually are going to, actually going to spend some money with them. So it's fantastic. So I'll send you that link. Okay, Kelly. Last thing is how do people get a hold of you? Because now they know how brilliant you are. They're going to want to hire you. So what's the best ways to find you on the internet?
The best way to find me on the internet is through Brand Method, and that's BRNDMethod. So that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. My email address is Kelly, Kelli, at brandmethod.com, BRNDMethod.
And when does your podcast air? Is it a regular time, or is it just subscribe and you'll get it when I get it, or how's that go?
Yeah, so we're actually in talks about restructuring that to just do more of the seasonal thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think that will probably help us to stay more on track. But yes, if you subscribe, you will get notification when we do the relaunch. And I think there's going to be a lot of value. Even some of the older stuff. I don't know if you guys have Park Mobile out there. We had a chance to talk to the CMO of Park Mobile, who's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be really good for the listeners.
I think it's great. Well, you know what I think has also been good for the listeners is hearing all these wonderful affirmations of things they can do to not only improve their business but keep themselves sharp and move forward. Kelly, thank you so very much for appearing here in the virtual lounge at PR After Hours.
Thanks, Alex.
Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. Don't forget, you can ask me a question anytime. You can do it through our Twitter account, which is @HoursPR, or even better, you can send me a message vocally. I would love to hear your voice, and I'll answer it on the show. There's a link in the show notes. All you have to do is sign up through Anchor FM. It's free, doesn't take long. And you record your message, I get the message, I will play your audio. Just give me your first name and the city you live in, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability right here on the show. Don't forget to, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support it and help increase the frequency and value of the show. Just consider being a sponsor for your brand or your agency or just yourself because you're like, I like this show. Or just drop a few coins in the virtual tip jar. Either way, there's links in the show notes. Please check that out. All of that, of course, being in the show notes where you're listening right now or at prafterhours.com. I see that they're turning up the lights. Last call is over, and I've got to clean up this virtual lounge. And until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours on Anchor FM.